Welcome back to Famicos TV, where we highlight people, programs, partnerships, strengthening our communities every day. I'm Ebony Webster, your host, and today joined with me is the amazing Cleveland City Council President, Blaine Griffin.
Hey.
Hey.
How you doing today, Ebony?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome and just taking the time to take some moments out of your busy schedule. I know you're busy.
Absolutely, but I'm glad to be here. I'm always glad to be able to talk to the community and venues like this.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's just dive right in. Your role, Council President, and congratulations on your reelection. By the way, I haven't gotten a chance to say that to you. I know in your role, you play a critical part in shaping legislation, driving neighborhood investments, and really ensuring that Cleveland residents have a voice at City Hall. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you know, we have 15 members of total councils. I actually represent the Ward 6 community, which is the Buckeye Shaker, Woodland Hills, Fairfax, University Circle, Little Italy, as well as East 93rd and parts of Mount Pleasant. And I would tell you that all 15 of us have a unique set of skills that we bring to the table, and my job is to kind of be the orchestrator. My job is to really try to help make sure that we all sing from the same hymn book, that we all focus on three major things, and then I'll get into some of our priorities, but the three major things are making sure that we oversee the budget. We're going to look in the budget and make sure that we set the budget. Council has a fiduciary responsibility to the city to set the budget.
Right.
Number two, to provide oversights of departments, to really look at seeing where we might have issues, where we might be falling short, and trying to find ways to prod the administration to fix it. The third thing that we do is we try to create innovative and creative policy. Things like the lead safe law, things like 311, things that are very important to quality of life and service. And I would tell you that what I try to do is tie everything into 5 critical pillars, which is housing and infrastructure, number 1. Number 2, health disparities, because we have a high exposure to lead. We also have Black women that are 4 times more likely than their white peers that lose a baby by their first birthday with infant mortality and morbidity. And then we also have other health disparities. The area that I serve has the lowest life expectancy in the entire county. We also focus on education and training, which is, to really try to make sure that we increase the talent pool so that we can keep good Fortune 500 companies and be able to work with that. Criminal justice, not just police reform, but criminal justice, looking at the entire criminal justice system, and reentry, which is a big passion of mine. And then also wealth creation and jobs. And notice I said wealth creation and not just jobs and careers, because wealth creation is also trying to promote home ownership. People know that if you want to try to create wealth, the best path to wealth is trying to make sure that we promote home ownership and land assembly. So those are some of the things that we focus on as a Cleveland City Council. And at the end of the day, I'm proud to be a part of this body.
Yeah, and you really, it's a plethora of everything that just connects what you all do and how you orchestrate with the mission of Famicos as well. And that's just to make sure that our residents are taken care of, providing those social services, supportive services, and things like that. So when people really hear your title, right, they think politics. Aside from that, you named a lot of policy and policy-driven initiatives. What is the most exciting or best thing you do personally in your role?
Well, politics has gained a bad word in America because of the polarization at the national level and some of the extreme polarization from the far left to the far right. One of the things about being a Cleveland City Council person is that I don't necessarily focus on the politics. I focus on being a good public servant. And being a good public servant to me means looking at the issues that are complex and vexing in our issues and trying to be able to come up with solutions to create a better quality of life for people in the city of Cleveland. The fun part of my job is working on a task and doing something that the entire community could benefit from. I would tell you one of the proudest moments is creating a Meyer supermarket at 105th and Cedar. That took 7 years to put that together. But when you go in there, it's a great environment to look at legacy residents who've been living there for 50, 60, 70 years, and then also some of the new energy that we're bringing that are doctors and nurses and people that work at the Cleveland Clinic and university hospitals and the eds and meds institutions. And I have a vision that really gets me excited when I can have that young nursing student sit in line at Myers Supermarket at 105th and Cedar, and that 70-year resident that's been living there since she's been a baby. And the student is sitting there having a conversation and say, I love this neighborhood because I can walk to work. We have all the amenities that we like. We have small businesses, and this is just a great place to live. And the elderly resident or the legacy resident says, yeah, like it used to be.
I love that.
So we're going back to the future, and that's what we like to do. So those are what's exciting. The hard part about this job is that every day there's crisis and fires that you have to put out, and it could be exhausting. You have to really, really try to take care of yourself because it can be overwhelming, and you're still dealing with the everlasting shadow of racism. And a lot of people who really don't understand how government works. And you oftentimes have to be a teacher. You oftentimes have to be a student. You have to learn from the prince and the pauper. So I love the fact that you have the ability to be creative and deal with all different worlds, which is what I love. But at the same time, it's a constant pace that can actually wear you out at times.
That's amazing. So I want to pause for a second because before we dig deeper into policy and community priorities, and just take a moment to do a personal connection moment, looking at your wrist.
Absolutely.
Yes, you are a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
Proud member.
Yes.
Omega Psi Phi till I die.
Hey, yes, it's an organization that's rooted in service, scholarship, leadership, obviously. And it's a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Come in love, sister.
Yes.
Come in love.
I know firsthand how our Divine Nine organizations, how they shape servant leadership. So just a personal question. How has Omega for you today helped you lead? Has it?
Omega helps center, it really helps center me. One of my favorite poems is a poem called If, and by Rudyard Kipling, and it talks about if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, but blaming it on you. Some of these things, they're so prophetic because what it does is it helps you understand that what you're seeing is only what other men and women have gone through. So it helps you be able to bear the journey. It also gives you insight on how you're supposed to carry yourself, upright and circumspect. The service delivery, people think that Omega is all about hopping, marching, and parties. But, the watchword of our whole being is to make sure that we are good public servants. Whether we are in elected office or whether we're business people or whether we're social workers, how do we help uplift our fellow man or woman? And we're the only first organization that was, created on a black campus, on an African American HBCU campus in Howard University. And also, we're the only organization, and I take pride in this, that's built off of friendship. Built off of fiats. Friendship is essential to the soul. And all of those things help me connect with the people that I never get away from my core principles, which is public service and making sure that I become a very valuable friend to the men and women of the neighborhoods in Cleveland, Ohio.
For sure. I love that. So welcome to the fold.
Thank you, sister. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Yes.
They don't know that you guys are our sister organization, so I defer to Deltas a lot more. I love all the divisions.
Right.
But the Deltas are my sisters. Yeah, we good.
Okay, let's get back to it, right? The word equity, okay? We talk a lot about equity, and I say we because, activists, advocates, community leaders, politicians, nonprofit organizations. Equity is the central theme that we strive for across our neighborhoods, communities, particularly the underserved. In your opinion, what does that look like in real life in helping people?
Well, first of all, let me say this. Equity has gotten a bad word from certain politicians that I believe are racist in their core thinking of how they look at equity. When they talk about DEI hires and all of that kind of thing, is really, you know, a really interesting time in America that people are trying to control what you read, control the outcome of who gets the jobs, control the outcome of who gets the wealth. Equity is how do we make sure that we all live the American dream, or all have an opportunity to live the American dream, because nothing is guaranteed, but you know, we all should have access. I tell people, when I was younger, I used to play basketball in college, and all of the guys that went home during the summer worked at their father's business, or they worked at a farm, or they did something. I went back and I kept playing ball, but what they were learning is, you know, getting a step up on having exposure to, you know, careers, business, jobs, where we were falling behind because we didn't have that same access. But I want to say this. I want to give a different definition and a different spin on equity, especially here in Cleveland. In Cleveland, Ohio, we have 48% African American community. We have about a 14% Hispanic community. Approximately 53% of this community are women, and a lot of them, overwhelmingly, approximately about 68% of the households in the city of Cleveland are headed by single women, heads of household. And to me, we're not asking about equity. We're asking about how do we get a return on our investment when the core people of this city are people of color, people that are women, people that have often been excluded by mainstream. And we're paying taxes. We are giving out money to organizations to try to create jobs and economic development and housing and other things in our community. So to me, I've moved from saying it's just about equity to having a return on our investment in the city of Cleveland.
I like that.
Having an ROI. We're only trying to make sure that people have an opportunity for what they're paying into. And a lot of times people try to make it, you know, they create a boogeyman and they try to demonize it so that they could try to dismantle it. And sometimes we have to adjust with the verbiage and make sure that we demand what we deserve at the table. But we all know many of us started out as a deficit. And that's how, you know, we got to try to create opportunities with equity. I got to tell you this story. I learned when I went in college, because when I was in the 9th grade, and my mother was an avid reader, and when I was in the 9th grade, they put me in a class called DPPF reading. And let me give you a hint, that wasn't the honors class, okay? It was a class full of young African-American men that they basically put in this class, and they labeled us without even really testing us, without even really trying to do this. And it was almost like, let's put them here and let's try to see it. When I did the research and I thought about it, after, you know, you get older and you start thinking about things, all of us were young black men that were being raised by single mothers in poor neighborhoods. So just the assumption and just how they literally tried to create where our trajectory in life was going to be. And we all know that they build jails based on 2nd and 3rd grade reading scores. But at the end of the day, what we really did is all of us overachieved because we didn't belong in that class. I never forget my mother saying, ain't nothing matter with that boy. That boy read real well. And when I did the test, I never had to take reading again. But all my peers had to continue to take reading classes, but I was already advanced. But because they labeled me, they put me in a position where if I didn't have a mother that was really feisty, probably would have been inequitable in my education and my trajectory in life, because they would have put me in a position where I would have always been at a deficit as opposed to being in an ability to compete.
That's a really good story, because that was my next question for you. Just a quick follow-up on, you kind of dove right into it, but just the system, right? So the system plays a big part. You just really read off some incredible data regarding the disparity. How can we, Black History Month, okay, how can we overcome and how can we remove that barrier collaboratively?
Persistence, diligence, consistency, because a lot of times I think we do as a community, we chase buses and we try to go from issue to issue. and we try to run from place to place instead of really trying to set everybody up to be consistent players on the field in order to try to really get traction that we need and really follow through. I will tell you that one of the things that people need to realize about the system is that the system is like a beast. The system is like a beast that doesn't have to eat, they don't have to sleep. It doesn't, it operates on a point where all it is there is to devour. And if you don't learn how to operate that system, which is why many of us are in leadership positions, then the people who you love and protect and the people who you care for, your families, your friends, your community, will get devoured by this system. This system is not in place to make you or me productive.
Yeah.
The system is in place to perpetuate power, wealth, and authority by a small few who want to hold on to it forever. And if people didn't believe in Project 25, I know that we're on a very, social platform right now, but one thing that people have seen is that there are groups and institutions that create platforms and systems that create inequitable things for our community. And that's why we have to always speak truth to power. We always have to make sure that we understand what are the things that are impediments in the way to us being able to lift all boats and really do what the Bible says, which is to make sure that we judge our society by people, by raising the least of these, people in the dawn of life and people in the dusk of life. So you gotta, I've learned a long time ago, nobody cares what you know unless they know that you care. So at the core of everything, how do we actually overcome these systems? Show that we authentically really care about our community and what we're trying to do.
And then also, I just want to add my little 2 cents into that, is being able to understand that it is systematic and that we are put the crabs in the barrel, right? They said the crabs in the barrel, but who put the crabs in the barrel from the beginning,
Exactly.
right? Right, so that follow through is very important, and being able to not fall back when you don't see that immediate change happen. And I think that's a lot that happens a lot with.
Exactly. And whether it's false or not, the Willie Lynch syndrome is real.
Oh, yeah.
Because
sure.
All of the things that you just mentioned about how we were put in place in the conditions that led to us having poverty, crumbling infrastructure, lack of housing, lack of opportunities, wasn't by accident. It was because certain groups were trying to elevate their status in society and their control, and then others were trying to put us in a position where we didn't have an opportunity. It was done intentionally.
For sure.
And this whole thing, which I drives me crazy when African Americans say this, because if you really look at our trajectory and our history, African Americans have always been group oriented. But we're still been made to believe that this American dream, pull each other up by your bootstraps, and this American exceptionalism, that's not Afrocentric. Afrocentric has always been about community and the collective work and responsibility.
Come on now. That's good right there. We can talk all day about this. We really can. But for the sake of time, I want to move on to public safety. Something that's also, I think, a trust issue between residents, community, and police. And prior to you joining council 2017, correct? Okay, so prior to that, you led
the Community Relations Board.
Right. And you focused on
police, community relations, and all of those different
There
things.
we go. So how does that experience help you today and how you approach public safety?
First of all, it helped
Especially
me.
in our neighborhoods.
Oh, yeah,
Ward
absolutely.
6, Huff, Superior, yeah.
First of all, it helped me realize that public safety and the disdain and distrust is not just between the police and the community. And people are surprised when I say that. And I'm going to tell you, I tell things better in the story. I never forget, I was in California one time and I was watching a panel with a police chief and a former Black Panther. And the Black Panther told the police chief, we never had a problem with law enforcement. Everybody thought we had a problem with law enforcement. We had a problem with the system. And the closest thing that represented the system was law enforcement. And law enforcement was the arm of the system that they seen sometimes being brutal in the neighborhood, sometimes being disrespectful and other things like that. So the distrust was really the system. but people relegated it to law enforcement in the community because oftentimes people don't want to get to the root cause. They try to do where they could just put Band-Aids over bullet wounds. And at the end of the day, we got to look a lot deeper than just the mistrust between the police and the community. The distrust is with systemic racism and systemic problems, and in general, it's not just police and the community. Many of the police in the community actually have a good relationship, but what they represent oftentimes is where it goes bad. And then when people see things like George Floyd, they see things that happen in our own backyard with like Melissa and Timothy, it erodes trust. You know, so what we try to do is tell police officers, just do small things. Roll down your window when you're riding down Huff, you know, so that people could feel like they're engaging with you. You know, get out once in a while and go to that park, man, and, you know, high-five that kid so that that kid can grow up. I never forget when I was young, we had an officer named Buddy Taylor. And Buddy Taylor would just do small things like, come on, I'm going to take all 10 of y'all to the haunted house. You know, I lived in the projects, man. I wasn't, what is a haunted house? Haunted house is going across the street where the boys over there don't like us and they gonna jump us if we go over there. No, the haunted house was actually a different experience. To really try to give exposure, and these kind of police officers, you know, a couple of my friends, you know, unfortunately didn't follow the right path, went to jail or did other things. But there were a few that actually followed Buddy's example and wound up trying to become police officers themselves. So sometimes it's a matter of going that extra step to show people that you're just human. And that's where, you know, I try to work on, you know, I don't just identify a problem and air grievances. I immediately move to, okay, how can we actually try to fix this issue? And that's what I try to focus on, because the problem is not relegated to just police and the community. It's much broader than that.
I'm happy to hear that. And just as you were just saying, I was thinking of when I was growing up. So half of my life I lived off of 55th, so not far from here. And then a majority was Collinwood area. But I remember when I was a young kid over here on 55th and Central, you know, tough neighborhood, right?
Exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
And you, just like you said, the police would ride around and they'll just like give us, we on our big wheels. I'm dating myself right now. On our big wheels, here's a icicle, or if the ice cream truck is coming down the street, they'll stop it for us. You know, and it was just friendly. It's like, oh, hey, Mr. Police Officer, and we'll get their badge and take pictures. You know what I mean? It was just nice. It's not that anymore. And it's hurtful. And the reason why I say that, because, you know, with Famicos, we do monthly safety meetings because our residents have that concern. A lot of our senior and our younger generation families, they have trust issues, and then they just don't think that they feel safe.
Well, and let me say this to you. If you don't have a good police-community relationship, you won't have safety. And
we're trying to
one of the things that people try to define is they try to put it as if African Americans or people that live in communities like me and you, that we don't want policing. There's a great book that if your audience ever had an opportunity to read called William Stent's The Collapse of Criminal Justice, that really outlines how black communities and communities of color and communities of you know, that are poor communities actually need and want more policing. They just want to make sure that it's accountable policing. But I would be remiss if I did not mention that part of the trust issues are some of these other quasi-law enforcement agencies or external law enforcement agencies like ICE. That people see every day, that these mass group of folks are just doing some of the things on TV. That doesn't embody trust either. Even though that's not our local law enforcement, even some of the more conservative police officers would tell you that their tactics are not the best. They're not the best trained, and they're not the best as far as holding accountable. And their budget has grown almost about $75 billion with the new ugly bill down in downstate or down in DC. But the bottom line is, you know, some of the stuff, when people see that on TV, they associate that with all law enforcement. And they don't realize doing that. And it goes back to even with the COINTELPRO situation where, you know, people felt, and I still to this day believe that most elected leaders, most public servants, especially ones of color, have a dossier where somebody is just waiting to try to see if they can try to do something to undermine the leadership of our community. And that's not speaking out of paranoia. That's speaking out of what I've watched and what I've seen.
Yeah, and I know, and you're exactly right, because what you see is what you feel like you're experiencing because you are of that descent, culture, or whatever, right? And then even if it hits personally for you, like for me, like I said, growing up, we were buddies with the police, okay? So now I find myself, even me, if I'm driving down the street and there's an officer behind me, I tense up. You know what I mean? So how can community organizations, residents and local government create safer, more trusting environments together? With all of that being said, how can we just collaborate and make this a trusting situation some kind of way?
Communicate, accountability, and being honest with what we had to do. But before I go any further, let me congratulate you and your family, because I don't know if your listening audience knows this. I don't know if the Huff community knows this, but we just passed what was called Tanisha's Law.
Yes.
And on Monday. And Tanisha's Law, because I was actually there on Ansel Avenue the night that happened, because as my role in the Community Relations Board, I will be dispatched to really try to understand what's happening on the ground from a civilian standpoint. And I seen how that family, especially Mr. Anderson, her uncle, really wrapped their arms around, we're not going to allow her death to be forgotten, that we're going to actually look at policies and things that we can push. And we always got some give and take, but at the end of the day, we think we have something that's going to enhance our crisis response, that we'll never have a family like that again. But being able to put policies in place, being able to put venues in place where people can actually honestly communicate and deal with each other, and then also making sure that the people that are elected or selected to hold people accountable, that there's accountability.
Yeah.
Now, this is why I said to you earlier, criminal justice is not just about law enforcement. What a lot of people don't know is that we make these disciplinary actions, especially administrations, once they make these disciplinary decisions, oftentimes an arbitrator that's unelected, that nobody knows, that has no connection to the community, oftentimes comes in and overturns decisions. We got to look at arbitration. We got to look at the judicial system. And we just had a case last year where a woman from Maple Heights was given like 5 years, and she was allegedly, or she was convicted of taking some money from city money, and it was a very minuscule amount, I think about $5,000. And then there was another young lady who basically broke the bank and took like $75,000 or something, and I think got, if she did go to jail, it was almost like probation or just 30 days. So the inequitability, the equitable sentencing, and those kind of things are things we need to look at too, because that's what erodes trust, when people see that they're not being treated equally or fairly.
Right. So what role do you think housing stability and economic opportunities play in public safety?
Stability. The most stable communities are communities that have schools that are centered to almost like the downtown. That's why so many people move to a lot of these suburban communities. Long-time home ownership, not just rentals, and not just people that are just passing through or people that don't have the same stake in the game. I have to say this not because I'm bragging, but a kid from the projects about 2 months ago, we learned that we own our house. We paid off our mortgage. We own our house. Those are the kind of things that stabilize communities. Because now, I tell a lot of stories. About a year ago, a young man who just got finished doing 11 years that used to be over my house playing basketball, because I had the kids from Woodhill Estates and the kids from Shaker Heights, and my house was like right in the middle. And all the kids would come on my house because I had 3 sons, and they would come play basketball and everything else. And one of the things that I always was amazed about is this one kid who wound up doing time. He had to go do 11 years. His mother and family moved away. When he got released, the only place he knew to go to in the neighborhood to say hello and try to get reacquainted with the neighborhood is my house. I sat him down, gave him some food, helped him get a job. You know what I mean? Because the only place he knew how to go to is what was familiar to him. So when you got, and to this day, knock on wood, the kid hasn't been back in trouble. Because what you realize is that it's stability, and it creates, a level of respect and expectations. And when you don't have that kind of cohesive community that with homes, and even if it's our renters, long-time renters, you don't have it. That's why people always ask, But why do people? How do the public housing and the projects work? And I tell people, because everybody's struggle is confined to each other, because what they would do is put these islands of poverty together. So it wasn't like how it was when, probably not your generation, but the generation a little bit before mine, where you used to have doctors, lawyers, and also the numbers runners and everything else all lived in the same neighborhood, all communicate with each other. Now we've all followed our economics and went to areas where we've left a lot of people behind and impoverished.
Yeah.
But those folks unify. They love each other. They have a commitment. So having a cohesive community with accountability and being able to try to do that is what makes good, strong, stable neighborhoods.
That's a really good, and that's a great segue to reentry. You spoke about the young man doing the 11 years, and I know you're passionate about reentry, and I am as well. And housing and jobs are two of the biggest hurdles for people to access with criminal records, right? So, when someone comes home from incarceration, the first few months can really tell their future in regard to, is it going to be a stepping stool? Is it going to be a barrier? Or is it going to be an obstacle? And we know, unfortunately, more times than none, it's a barrier. And I don't know if you know, but, we partner with Legal Works, and we, give people those second chances and expunge records and seal records and so forth. And last year we did over 1,000. It's pretty much been that average the last few years. But my question for you, just knowing of those barriers and hurdles for people trying to re-enter back into the world, what is the city working? How is the city working to encourage fair jobs?
Okay, that's a great point. This is where, in my prior position as Community Relations Board, I was proud to work with the former mayor, Frank Jackson, on a couple of things. One, we passed and implemented, actually didn't pass because it wasn't council at the time, we just made an administrative change to add what's called ban the box, where it used to be on every city application, it was a statement that says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? So what we found out is that it had a disparate impact on a disproportionate part of Cleveland, because if most employers would see, have you been convicted of a felony, and you put yes, then you would automatically go into the trash bin, or you'll go into that pile that, well, we don't want to consider this person. And it was a barrier for a lot of people that were qualified and could do some of these jobs as trash collectors, as other folks, that were just getting disqualified because they were literally, I would be as far as to say, discriminated against because of their past. Now, what we did is ban the box. Now Ohio is trying to do it, and they're trying to do it for businesses because they know that there's a very big workforce in reentry that we could be putting in manufacturing, that we can get certified to do good paying jobs and all of those things. So that was a policy, that was an example of what we did to try to address reentry. The other thing that I would tell you that we've done is with the former mayor, we used to actually bring in and have what was called call-ins. And we would identify some of the bad actors in the neighborhood and some of the folks that were back in reentry. And we basically, have a conversation with them, say, you're going to have to deal with a good offense or good defense. A good offense means we're going to help you get a job, whether it be in the water department or whether it be waste department or wherever, so that you can get a job with benefits, take care of your family, etc. If you don't deal with that, then we're going to deal with a good defense, which means that we're going to try to come down hard on the law enforcement side and deal with you and hold you accountable. So those things work because we would be able to get people and identify them. And the reason we started that is because I would have these mothers that would tell me, well, I didn't know my son was in any trouble until there was a big sweep, and then they would get caught up in like a drug sweep or something like that. And these were kids that could have been diverted, or young people between the ages of 15 and 24 that could have been diverted. And because we wouldn't have a way to engage them, I would go and work with juvenile court frontline officers, CMSD officers, rec center directors, and street folks, street outreach workers, in order to try to make sure that we identify who the players were. And I would tell you, when we did that, crime went down dramatically because we were able to get them jobs. We were able to make sure that we got them out of those streets. We were able to let them know, hey, we're on to you. You didn't hit somebody's radar. You need to pull up. And it was a way to really try to make sure that we dealt with reentry and dealt with trying to create that cycle of incarceration, mass incarceration.
That's really good to hear, and I can't wait for the audience to hear what you just said, because I'm telling you, it's just when people come into our building that's going to see Legal Works, and just they look so defeated, and they just like, I'm really trying, and then there's those who don't know what opportunities exist for them, and then they fall right back into,
Right.
And so I just really hope that they take advantage of services that's available.
Right.
That's
And then I
my
work with
question.
people like Fred Ward and the FinPac and others. So
yeah.
I work with a lot of
He's
people
an amazing guy,
that
too.
have a
Yeah.
lot of impact with the reentry community.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing people don't realize about Ohio, which is one day we'll get hip to this. Ohio is one of 4 states that has an automatic that is called a restoration of rights bill,
Okay.
where basically once if you are in jail on a misdemeanor, you can vote absentee. A lot of people don't know that. The other thing
That's
that
true.
you need to know is that even if you were convicted of a felon, most states try to ban you or bar you from being able to vote.
Right.
But in Ohio, we're one of 4 states where you have automatic restoration of rights. If somebody ever tapped into that reentry population and really, really cultivated them to have a political voice, that would be a powerful block. Now, Fred has probably been the closest that's been able to do it. I have my hopes on who can do it at a later date, because I think that they'll be very good at being able to try to marry the justice
Right.
with the reentry part. But at the end of the day, we got to really try to cultivate that crowd. And to your point about housing, we got to get out of that NIMBY. Now, I will say this, I think that some areas are being infiltrated more than others.
Okay.
I don't think it's fair to try to put all of the reentry houses or halfway houses in the
one-
Fairfax community in
Right.
the Huff area.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to share the burden.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I will tell you that we got to be more open to, especially offenders that don't have sex offenses or nonviolent offenses. We got to be able to provide better housing options for them. And there's a lot of people out there like that. Now, I'm not saying ostracize or alienate sex offenders forever, but I'm saying, people are always going to be leery whether it's sex offenders, but most of these guys that are coming home are not sex offenders or not violent offenders.
Yeah. Right.
And I actually worked in the field before I was an elected official or worked in the community relations board, that I actually worked in how I would, I had a job at the county working on a severe and violent oriented reentry initiative, which I literally went to the jails and tried to work on how we got violent offenders and helped them return home.
That's good. That's good. So, revitalization, senior supportive services, affordable housing, food pantries, low-income families, helping them. That's the ecosystem of community development corporations. Okay? So I want to talk to you about a recent article where you were quoted about CDCs. Specifically, now I'm going to attribute them respectfully. They published an article, Signal Cleveland, quoting the city of Cleveland, stating that Cleveland's community development corporation's ecosystem is at its weakest point in a generation. And then at a recent council meeting, you, council president, said the CDC ecosystem is broken. So my question to you is just blatantly, what do you mean by that, and what realities are driving that assessment?
So I'll start out by saying it is. They're inadequately funded. The feds have basically abandoned it. There's not a lot of private equity or anchor institutions that are invested in CDC. So part of it is, from a community standpoint, they're asked to do an impossible task with little money. On top of that, the fact that they're not getting the dollars out the door, which means that a lot of these CDCs are putting up money and falling into deficits because they don't have money up front. And fortunately, Famicos is one of the few agencies that does. But maybe John would tell you, city owes him a lot of money. that he's been waiting to get a lot of money for a lot of years. So getting payments on time, just like any small business, you need to make sure we pay these CDCs. They don't have a clear mission, because at the end of the day, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm dating myself. When I started in this business, and I actually started with Anno, I call him Anno. He was at Buckeye Area Development Corporation, and the CDC focused mainly on bricks and mortars, how they were trying to do housing and those kind of things, and the settlement houses, which a lot of people don't realize. At that time, it was East End Neighborhood House, focused more on the people social work side.
Right.
So in the mid 90s, there was a shift that took place where a lot of those, or the late 90s, where a lot of those settlement houses couldn't keep up with the organizing because they were living off of grants, and then those grants started to diminish and dwindle. And then the CDC stepped in and took over the community organizing side and the bricks and mortar. Well, now you fast forward, they're asked to do small business development, they're asked to do housing, they're asked to do social services, they're asked to do all of these different things.
We do all of that, yes.
And can I be honest with you? Probably only 4 or 5 CDCs are financially and fiscally equipped to do it. And they're getting leaned on by the rest of the city because, and I don't want to call any names, but I got probably 2 CDCs in the last 4 years that went defunct, actually 3. In the area that I serve have gone under in the last 4 years. So people can't be upset when they say the CDC system is broke, because I've witnessed it. I had to come in and help save 100 people from losing their homes because the Buckeye Area Development Corporation, CDC, went under because they took back management of their properties. And when they took back management of their properties, they weren't paying water bills, weren't paying taxes, weren't paying any of the bills. And then people were waking up in the morning and saying, hey, why is my house being sold for sheriff auction next week? That's a system that's broken.
Sure.
And, so people don't even think that I'm painting everything with a broad brush, but the system in the whole has too many gaps. You got too many areas. Lee Harvard and Collinwood. Lee Harvard, I think, tries to work with Famicos some, but Lee Harvard and Collinwood don't even have a functioning CDC. Right. Some of these other areas don't even have functional CDCs that they can actually rely on to do housing inspection or some of the things that you guys do. So I think that when I say a statement like that, from the federal government to the state to the private sector to, yes, some of the CDCs themselves, none of those I didn't say, not everybody with a broad brush, are failing. And guess who fails because of that? Our community, our quality of life. Because I'm a public servant, I'm a politician. Right. My job is to allocate the dollars, but the people that run the day-to-day are your Fairfaxes, your Famicos, some of those folks. And they would tell you that the grants and the money that they used to get back in the day have dwindled tremendously. The staff is, I got one CDC that has 5 people. And the areas that they're serving have grown. How can you serve an area with 5 people? I mean, so there is inconsistency. And to me, that's a broken system. And it's something that, to be honest with you, I really want to get the foundations, some of the CDC folks, and yes, the city, because I know the city has an RFP in a room so that we could say, how do we move forward? How do we right size this thing? Because we're going to have to move past some of these CDCs that just cannot function. How do we make sure that we have more collaboration with back office so that every CDC is not trying to have personnel issues, healthcare, all those kind of things? How do we do those things? And that's going to take everybody getting in the room and compromising. And it's going to take some people to sacrifice a little bit of their pride and a little bit of their piece of the world in order to try to play ball with a bigger universe.
Right. And just for the audience, when you said Anno, he's speaking of John Analifo. He's our executive director, our fearless leader, amazing man. And you were just speaking about the RFP. So that is what's being said, is that for the consultant. Right. Okay.
Which is going to be interesting, and I'm trying to be honest with you, understand it.
Well,
now that didn't come from council; that came from the administration, and to be honest with you, I'm asking all of the CDC world, like, okay, what does this mean? Because
So that's what I want to ask
awkward.
you. Yeah.
I don't know. I may not have an answer for you on that one.
Not a technical answer. I just think, and just, again, the city is seeking a consultant to help redesign how CDCs operate and collaborate, just to get that out there. But my question for you, I know you don't have the technical answer, but what outcomes would you like to see? Or do you not know yet?
I want to understand better the proposal. I want to also understand more of the feedback, and I want to tell you what a proposal that was on the table that we were considering as council. But before I do that, can I just tell everybody an Anno story?
He's gonna love this. Absolutely.
The reason I'm gonna tell everybody an Anno story, I go back to Anno when I had hair. I had a big afro and a beard, and I was ready to argue and fight with everybody. I was really an activist and an organizer. And me, Anno, and there was a guy named Reed Robbins.
Okay.
We joined together, and Reed, unfortunately, has passed since. But Reed represented the Shaker Area Development Corporation. Just to tell you, when I say the CD system was broken, Reed represented the Shaker Area Development Corporation, which was all of that Shaker Square, Friends of Shaker Square, Larchmere, all of that area. And John Anno represented the Buckeye, which was Wood Hill, Woodland, and Buckeye, and all of that area. And the tracks were kind of the dividing line, the rail tracks, because the rail tracks have always traditionally been a dividing line between the Hungarian and Italian community, the wealthy and the poor, everything else. Well, we had a major institution, St. Luke's Hospital, that was closing. And me, John, and Reed met, and we formed a collaboration, and we stopped that hospital from being shut down. What? And we actually made the county, at the time, it was a 3-county commissioners, and this was, Anna was feisty as he can get out, because when he gets riled up, he gets riled up. And we actually, organized the community, and we stopped that hospital at the time from being completely closed down to they originally did the psychiatric unit.
Right, okay.
And they changed it and repurposed it as opposed to where they originally was just going to shut down. There's a major anchor institution right in the center of all of the areas that we serve, right? So we got together. This is an example of when CDCs were strong. Shaker Area Development is a shell of its former self. I think the most they do is pretty much a newsletter. They don't do much at all. They don't really have an infrastructure or anything else because they basically got hurt around some apartment buildings and some buildings that they kind of lost on. So they're not really active, even though there's some remnants of it, but it's not really active or strong as it was when Reed was there. And then Buckeye has dissolved. This is the area that I serve.
Right.
So I didn't have a CDC until I was able to go and talk to my friend Tim Tramble and try to get the CDC to move up into the Buckeye, Shaker, and Woodland Hills area because you need, it's called a FQHC, or a federally qualified development agency, in order to fund money through federal money to try to get, projects done in your neighborhood. I had none. So I witnessed first and foremost how a CDC infrastructure that collapsed because Anno wound up going to Famicos, who was a better situation for him and a great pickup that they did to get him as a leader. And Reed wound up passing away. So when I say that our CDC system is broke, I've watched it break. And I've watched how some areas are doing good because they have an anchor organization. For example, Fairfax has a great relationship with Cleveland Clinic. So, of course, because that's a high growth area, they're very successful. And they get very little money from a lot of these other resources that some of these other smaller CDCs rely on in order to be successful. So I just want to make sure I give that kind of example.
That's a really good example to really detail that and make that more specific. And so, because, sometimes when you read things or you hear the mini soundbite, you can take, how that goes. And so
the joke in Cleveland is blame Griffin. I tell everybody, blame Griffin. I'm not Blaine, Blaine, B-L-A-I-N-E Griffin. Sometimes I'm blame Griffin. And I'm not the one that's actually driving the problem. The problem is actually from several other people who had the fiduciary responsibility. Now, I would tell you what council was thinking about doing, because you asked the question about what some of the things that we're looking at. At one point in time, we were thinking about swapping federal dollars to try to do things like street repaving and housing demolition and some of the things that we use dollars for that right now the CDC is using for, because those dollars are so restricted, and trying to make them more flexible by moving towards general fund dollars. Now, my only concern about that is once you make that switch, and this is the reason why I've been a little slow at doing it, is that you can't go back. And with what we're seeing at the federal government, I'm not sure if I want to gamble trying to make that swap, and then all of a sudden the federal dollars that we get diminished, and then I got to sit up in the middle of a room and get tomatoes thrown at me because why isn't my street getting repaved? Well, we used to do it out of the general fund, and we used to be able to move expeditiously, but now we got to rely on federal funds, which takes a long time to get reimbursed, takes a long time to get money out the door, and there's so many strings attached to it that most people would probably just walk away and not even try to be bothered with it. And so another reason why I say that the system of what we were looking at trying to do is challenging, because even from the federal government, we didn't even get our award letter until December of this year, which means we couldn't even do hearings around it. Yeah. So, you know, I hear the echoes. All these CDC directors would call them, hey, Blaine, what do you mean? But it's broken. And they need to admit that it's broken. Now, I ain't saying every organization is broken, but the entire ecosystem, poor Famicos can't eat another bite in the city of Cleveland because they have so much.
We have so much, and we help so many.
And they help so many.
And,
but at the same time, that's not fair, because the investment is not running parallel with the request. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, they're trying to cover gaps in areas halfway across the town that really somebody should be filling those gaps in there. And so I think we got to really, and then we got to make sure that the philanthropic areas, because the philanthropic community oftentimes like to say, we're going to focus on this. This is our priority. We're not going to focus on other things. And I think that leaves gaps throughout our city. But they can't mission creep because they only have so many dollars. So it's you know, most CDCs get most of their money from council people. That's not sufficient. Like I said, Fairfax gets a big chunk of money from me, but they also have a very good partner in Cleveland Clinic that actually puts in a lot of money and support for the area too. Yeah.
So I know you say you're trying to understand the RFP yourself. Before I ask this next question, has there been a decision on a time frame of when this may be implemented, or even, I guess, approved?
I'm looking at getting answers from the administration, and I've told the mayor and I met about a week ago. Okay. And one of the things I told him is that council needs to be intimately involved in understanding the timeline, the implementation. What does this mean? The biggest organization, and I'll speak candidly, who I'm trying to understand what this means for them, is Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, who traditionally had the role of overseeing and working on the collaboration and knitting all of the CDCs together, and also trying to help weak CDCs become stronger, and help maintain and stabilize and support strong CDCs. I don't know what this RFP means for them. And that's something that I've asked their leadership, and I'm asking others, like, help me understand what this means, because if you bring a consultant in, okay, whose idea and where's this consultant come from? And I'm not always a big fan of bringing consultants in from out of town to try to tell us what we should do in Cleveland if they don't understand the history, the background, and the commitment and the role that CDCs have. CDCs have played a vital role in developing the city. Any community that you see in the city of Cleveland that's successful, that's growing, that's increasing population, that's increasing good quality housing stock and rooftops, has a committed council person, high quality CDC, and an engaged community. That's the secret sauce to try to make sure that we have successful communities. And I can tell you, out of the 37 or so, 36 or 37 statistical planning areas, and out of the 15 wards that we have, that there are significant gaps throughout this entire ecosystem around CDCs.
I get that. And I think too, I think a lot about our residents, right? Because They are very engaged. Are very involved, and we are one of the biggest CDCs, so we have a lot of ground coverage, so to speak, right? And so, again, I know this is probably prematurely asked, but I just wonder, for residents, how can we make sure this process reflect real neighborhood priorities? So it's not coming across as just administrative restructuring.
I'll be honest with you.
You know
That's
what I
the
mean?
core of what that's the core of everything that I believe in and what I do. So at the end of the day, this CDC consultant or whatever they're trying to do, if there's not a role to really try to make sure that the resident voice is dominating this and that this is resident driven, then it's going to fail. And it's going to be one
and we're very protective over our residents. We are very protective.
One thing you'll learn about City Hall, there's a room in City Hall, and I believe it's on the 4th floor. Okay. And it's a big old room that nobody even knows that's there. It's where they say plans go to die. And I would tell you that this consultant review would go in that room and die if it doesn't have residents and community voice and community center. And yes, you guys do have one of the more active communities with Huff, and what you've done with the land trust and some of the other things that you guys have done has been good. Now, Union Miles, I'm proud of my sister Roshan Sample because she's been able to approach this a different way. Okay. But I also throw this, and this is no slight to my colleagues, but I gotta say this: they could blame Griffin. Different colleagues have different approaches to what they want CDCs to do. I fund you. I give my expectations, whether it's code enforcement, whether it's computer programs, whether it's job creation, whether it's we want to build 20 homes or whether we're trying to build. I get the strategy. I get the vision. I get the whole community plan of what we're trying to do, like Fairfax and others, where we develop a whole community plan and strategy, and then I let them execute. A lot of my colleagues want to be almost into the mix of CDCs to carry out some of their own pet projects. And I don't think that's always good for the CDC because then if they're not staying core to their mission and core to what they believe their values are, then they'll get distracted trying to help Councilman so-and-so do X, Y, Z. And Councilman do this. And like I said, many of these CDC directors have big hearts. They really care a lot about our community. Yes. And at the end of the day, sometimes it's hard for them to say no, but their capacity is only so big. Right. And they're asked to do an enormous task and don't always have the support that they need to do it. And that's why I think, once again, that we got to do something to help the system. And the residents have to be the voice and at the forefront of this conversation.
So what advice would you give, at this infancy stage of the process, and then moving on to what it's going to be? What advice would you give to CDCs and like Famicos and so forth right now as this process progress?
First and foremost, start with organizing and engaging your community. When you have a base, it's harder for people to try to manipulate you. Make sure that community base and that community voice is intact. And that's going to be the first thing, because when you have a constituency, it's a lot harder for a consultant or a lot harder for an administration or a lot harder for a council person to come in and try to undermine what the community wants to do. That's the first and foremost. The other thing is look at your own operations and see where you need the right size. Really understand where you need the right size. Understand also where your specialty is at. Where's your expertise? I would say Famicos' expertise is their community and their engagement and the residents that they are engaged with. I would tell you in Slavic Village, they're very good at housing and code enforcement and inspection. I can tell you in Union Miles, they're very good at small business development. Understand your Little Italy, they're very good at really helping with SID districts, special improvement districts, which they have actually convinced the residents and also some of the restaurants to invest in extra police force, because 50,000 people come into that footprint every year with University Circle. So they've expanded the SID, the Special Improvement District. Gordon Square also has a Special Improvement District. Planning and built environment. understand what your community really wants to see as a planned and built environment. Whether, like people love bike trails and they love all of that, but at the same time, if that's not what your community is looking for, then you need to be open and say that. Understand the trends. Where is the CDC world going? What makes a good leader is being able to look around those corners and understand what trends are coming up and how you might need to adjust to deal with those trends. Because whether CDC is like it or not, there's going to be a change and the trends will change.
That's good. I'm going to take heed to that. We're going to take heed to that.
Okay.
Lastly, on this subject, I do want to ask you about your specific belief and not thought, okay, regarding this next question. And that's because there's a big difference between thinking about change and believing that change is possible. All right? You get where I'm going? Because, just thinking, it happens in your mind. You're considering possibilities, right? And then in your heart, you're creating movement. All right? So my question to you, as a leader, developing policy and partnerships, how do you move from thinking about big ideas to believing in them enough to commit to action?
So that's a great question, because one of the things that, and I'm not going to be political, but one of the things that I try to pride myself on is get things done. One, I don't start from conception and work my way up to reality. I start out with reality and I back my way into what are the steps that I need to make in order to get to that reality. Case in point, we identified, and data drives a lot of what I do. So we noticed in the Fairfax community that we, wanted a grocery store. And that was a very, food insecurity. One of the top things, the top 3 social needs in my area, according to the Alice report in United Way, is food insecurity, number 1, number 2, rental assistance, number 3, utility assistance. So we knew that there was a high priority to try to do, deal with food insecurity. So once I do that, then okay, what do I need? What partnerships do I need to have in place in order to get there? Build your partnerships. So the clinic became a partner. Right. They put in about 6 to 8 million. Then Fairfax was a partner. They basically gave up some of the land. The community was engaged. We actually had a meeting where Clinic brought 18 of their top executives to meet with the community at Fairfax at Caramel House, where we actually engaged and said, okay, what does community want? I actually took some of the stakeholders from the Cleveland Clinic and also the CEO from Grand Rapids for Meyer Supermarket, and I actually got them out of the office and we walked the neighborhood and they talked to a Mrs. Paul on her porch on 103rd and Cedar. They actually talked to some of these young people that are at the park and, saying, well, what do you want to see? There's jobs and we want a supermarket. And it was enlightening. And then we start putting together the money. And where do we identify who can pony up?
Right.
You know what I mean? So you almost have to, I tell people, one of my favorite people, is Jim Tressel, because I'm a kid from Youngstown, and then Tress was a great coach at Ohio State. And I never forget talking about the transition and going from football, where he had to call a play every 35 seconds, compared to where he would go to 100 meetings and nothing would get done, because everybody would just be talking. You got to be able to really have champions to move the ball. To me, when I get locked in on something, failure is not an option. And it took me 7 years, and it took our community 7 years, but we wound up getting that grocery store. And I don't know if you've been there, but it's been a huge success on 105th and Cedar. And they sell authentic products from people in the community. So the community, if they have a good idea, whether it's CMOS or whether it's, I watched on this morning on the news that Sweet Fix has their products in there. I mean, so to be able to have community, some of my friends have wine tastings in there that they make wine and they do it. So being able to do it, and then the authenticity, when you go in there, it doesn't just say Meyer, it says Ward 6, Fairfax. It has streets. Dave's does the same
Yeah, down
thing.
here, yeah.
So, to really try to make sure you capture the essence of that community. And that's how you actually get things done, get stuff done. I made up my mind a while ago that I'm not going to go in rows and continue to just have conversations that don't go anywhere. I just don't have that much time, so I have to deliver and get busy. But map yourself a strategy, get yourself the right partners, find out who can put in the money, and ignore the noise, because there's always going to be people in the background. Because people, we hate the clinic, we don't like the clinic. Well, you know what? The clinic has been a good partner. I know that they did some things in the past that, really hurt our community in certain ways. But if I need people to get hired, if I want training, they've invested about $52.5 million in lead. They've invested in maternal health. They help with Myers Supermarket. They also made a big contribution to the food bank. So the things that I request them to do to help my community is not about me. It's about how we leverage them as an anchor institution to help our community.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
We gonna have some fun now.
Okay, all right.
Real quick, I have to do my lightning round.
Okay, gotcha.
You heard about the lightning round?
No, but I'm about to find out.
So the lightning round is I'm gonna ask you a question, and you immediately give me your answer. Whatever comes to your mind is your answer.
Gotcha.
You ready?
I'm gonna try.
Okay. This is where I'm gonna cue the music.
Okay.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Favorite neighborhood in Cleveland besides Ward 6?
Collinwood.
One word to describe Ward 6.
Diverse.
Favorite way to unwind after a long day at City Hall?
Workout.
Who in Cleveland inspires you the most right now?
Donovan Mitchell.
That's real. If you weren't in public service, what would you be doing?
In law, doing something illegal. I really like law.
I can see that. Island or city vacation?
Island.
One piece of advice you give young Cleveland leaders?
Time is short.
If Cleveland had a theme song, what would it be?
Boom, 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 boom.
That is our theme song. I mean, one of them.
See you at the crossroads.
Not the crossroads.
Boom, 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 whatever. It's the first of the month. I'll be honest, I'm a Youngstown kid and I played basketball in Canton. And the first place that I went, because I was so enamored, was 99th and St. Clair. Because I was like, man, these young brothers are bad.
Yeah.
And it's just been great. That was one of the honors of really getting a chance to meet them and some very good people in the city of Cleveland. But yeah, it would have to be something from Bone. I think that Bone really set us up real well.
I think they did too.
Yeah.
Finish this sentence. I love Cleveland because.
I love Cleveland because we're resilient, tenacious, and just great people.
Okay, Council President, I asked this question to everyone. It's the most serious of them all. All right, your mic is on. You're being recorded. You have to give this answer. It's going to let me know if I could trust you or not.
Okay.
All right, you
You
ready?
me kind of scared, but okay, go ahead.
Sugar or no sugar in grits?
Little sugar don't hurt. Just a little sugar don't hurt.
Y'all heard that
Little
right?
sugar on everything.
Y'all heard that right. Yes.
Little sugar, little sugar.
Little
everything.
sugar don't hurt.
Pour some sugar on
Put some sugar on it.
What's that song? Pour some sugar on me.
Thank you. I trust you even more now.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you again for being here with us. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we go?
I would just tell you, man, I said something earlier that people don't care what you know unless they know that you care. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I tell people, and I'm going to take a little, I want to be very respectful, but I want to say this. Sometimes the mainstream media does not give counsel our just due, and especially African-American men. We often become the target of mainstream media, and they try to find ways to try to do what I call Birth of a Nation. If you ever watched the old Birth of a Nation, the old black and white silent Birth of a Nation, it's almost like they try to paint a picture of most African-American men like it's a birth of a nation. We really do love this city. People only care about what you know when they know that you care. And all of us, especially me, love this city, and there's nothing they can do about it. I could have run and went to some of the suburban communities like a lot of other people. But we chose to sit here, man, and be city folks and really try to work hard to try to turn the trajectory of this community. And Cleveland's brighter days are ahead. We got to believe in it. We got to speak life into it, and we got to make sure that we put the work in order to make it happen.
I love that. Thank you. And to circle back and piggyback off of what you just said in our closing about belief and how powerful that really is. Your belief system is so powerful. Even in the Bible, we talked about the Bible earlier. Think about in Matthew 14 when Peter, he thought Jesus could do the miracles. But his belief came when he got off that boat and got on the water.
Absolutely.
Right? In the movement, in the action. So I thank you for really taking the time to be specific in your belief systems. I think is very, very, very insightful and useful for those who don't know how to use theirs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much again, Council President, for joining us. I really appreciate it. And for you out there, like, subscribe, follow, share. I'm Ebony Webster. Until next time.